Hello everyone. So today we're going to create an application that can connect to MongoDB using Mongoose and ExpressJS. So the first step we need to do is we want to create our project folder. In this case, I've created a new folder named demo. And what I want to do is I want to init. First, I want to initialize it as an NPM project. So NPM init. And then, just press enter for everything. Just keep it the default as is. Yes. So once that's done, we need to install the following libraries. We want to install body parser, course, and express and mongoose. What do these do? Body parser allows you to parse JSON requests. Course is to allow uh, your server to accept requests from different clients. .env is a library that we will use to create environment variables, and this is where we will set up our MongoDB connection. We have Express, of course, that we'll use for our routing endpoints, our APIs, and we have Mongoose. This is the library that we will use to manage our MongoDB connection and to connect to our MongoDB database. So now I've installed all of these libraries. The next step we will do is we want to open this project in our Visual Studio Code. So go ahead and open Visual Studio Code. So you can open this and then open the demo folder that I just created. Okay, so now what you will see here is you should see a package.json, and this is the package.json that you've created with all the information that you've set up. And you can see that I've installed the dependencies like body parser, course.l, express, and mongoose. Okay, so the next step we will do is we want to create our app.js or index.js. So index.js will be our main server application. So right now, what we want to do is we want to set up our Express app. So if you remember discussion, we can just import Express, import course, import body parser. With import Mongoose, we will use that later. And then let's set up app as an Express app. Let's use course to allow clients to access the server, send requests. We have body parser to accept JSON requests, and let's use your code for body parser. And now let's try to start up this app. So we can do that by app.listen and then app started. If you have this, okay, if you have this setup, um, you've noticed that we don't use require anymore here. This is because we are using the what we call the ES6 modules. When you say ES6, this is the way to this is the way to import libraries using ES6. If you have the old common JS, alternative to ES6, we have common JS. If you use common JS, it will be like const express equals require express. But I'm teaching you this ES6 format because this is the more modern one and this is the one that we more commonly use moving forward. So what we want to do is we want to specify that we will use ES6 modules by typing type module here in our package.json. It's basically saying I want to use ES6 modules for this project. Okay, so I save this and I'll save this. Now let's try to start the application and let's see if it will run. npm. Oh, we will need to set up our start script. So what we usually do is in the scripts group here, we create start, and then it will be it's node index.js. So let's try it. Let's try npm start. So app is started. Okay, so we have our Express app running right now, but it's not yet connected to our database. Okay, so what you need to do is you would want to install MongoDB in your system, and then we will connect to MongoDB. So the way to install MongoDB, if you have Mac, you can actually install MongoDB through Brew. But I think the easiest way is to go to the MongoDB website installation. Okay, so go to the MongoDB installation, and then there's a lot of tutorials here. You can actually download MongoDB. And once you've had MongoDB downloaded and set up, installed in your machine, what will happen is you should be able to run Mongo. And if you run Mongo, you will be able to access your MongoDB. So let's exit. Okay. Now I already have Mongo installed in my system. And now what I want to do is I want to connect to my MongoDB database. So what I will need to do is I will go to index.js and using Mongoose. Okay. What I want to do is I want to set up a connection to our MongoDB database. So what I will do is I will create an environment file. So we'll call it .env, which is a common file name we use for environment variables. And in this .env, env, we will put the following information. Okay. So we have MongoDB URI, MongoDB localhost 27017. So this is our MongoDB. This is our MongoDB URL. This is how we will access our MongoDB. It's the default port of MongoDB is 27017. So if you installed it normally, didn't change anything, this will be the way to access the MongoDB via this port. Server port is a setting. We can exclude this. But we can also keep it. These values here are variables, so it's basically just assigning these values into environment variable. And we have DB name. Let's create a DB name demo. Okay, so our DB name is demo. And the next step we'll do is we will want to get the value of these environment variables. So the way to do that is go to your index.js and then let's import .env/config. And then once you have imported .env/config, you're now able to access the environment variables using process.env. Okay. .mongo URL, because whatever the name you use here, sorry, it's MongoDB URI, that's the variable name that's the variable that will be used. So to connect to the MongoDB database, you simply need to type this mongoose.connect, and then we will connect. The first parameter is the MongoDB URI, which is this one. So you can actually copy this here. But what I'm trying to teach you is how to set up environment variables so that later you can use different variables. You can switch around different databases if you want. Like if you have a local machine or you have a deployment to a cloud MongoDB, you can just change the URL in the environment variables. You can have multiple environment files, env files, so you can do that. So you have so I have this MongoDB URI. So basically, if you connect, it's connecting to this MongoDB, which is your local MongoDB, and the database name is the DB name that you specified here. It's the DB name. It's demo. So if I run this, I should be able to connect to the demo database. So let's try to run it. Okay, so I was connected. I already started. There's no error. So let's that should be connected. So the next step we want to do is we want to be able to create and read data through MongoDB. So the way to do it with Mongoose is we will create models. Okay, and these models are what we use to actually map to the MongoDB collections or tables in SQL. So in MongoDB, we don't have tables, we have collections. And in SQL, we have records. In MongoDB, we have documents. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to create a model that will be mapped to our database records. So for example, if we want to create a project or an application that lists restaurants, for example, it's a restaurant reviews. So we would want to create some models that will be mapped to actual MongoDB tables or collections. So the way to do it is we want to create, let's create a new folder here named model. And then in this model, let's create a new file named restaurant.js. Okay. So in restaurant.js, we will create a mongoose schema. Okay. This is what we call a mongoose schema. So import mongoose, and then let's uh, create the variable schema in model, which is taken from mongoose. This syntax simply means that you're getting, this is the same as const schema equals mongoose.schema, and then const model equals mongoose.model. You see, these variables are actually attributes of mongoose. So if you do this, you're basically saying, oh, I'm assigning the variable schema and the attribute of mongoose schema into the variable name schema. So it's the same as this one. So yeah, so I have the schema in the model. And then what we want to do, similar to what we learned in jQuery, in JavaScript, when creating some models in JavaScript, we can also create some models here. So for example, we can create a restaurant schema, which is a new schema. It's a mongoose schema. And then you have the name and the address as the attributes. So let's just say we have our table, our collection restaurant has two fields. It's name and address. Okay. Okay. So the next step is we will create the restaurant model. So restaurant model, so the model name is restaurant and the schema is the restaurant schema. So what is this trying to say? It says we're creating a model that is based on this schema or these attributes. So now we have a restaurant object that we can reuse across the application. Okay, and then let's export this as our default export. Okay, so now we have restaurant schema. The next step we will do is we want to use this restaurant schema to connect to our MongoDB database. Okay, so what we will do next is we will create some express routes. Okay, so last time we learned about creating different endpoints like app.get or app.use. Now I'll teach you how to create grouped routing. So we can create a group of routes that we can reuse across the application. So to do that, we'll create routes using express.router. And then let's create our routes here. So for example, if you want to create a new route for restaurant, previously we used app.get, right? Restaurant /:id. But here, let's use routes.route and then restaurant::id .get. Okay. So what does this function do? Okay, let's try to understand it. So you're basically saying, if you access this endpoint, restaurant::id, what it does is it actually gets the restaurant here based on this line, restaurant that find by ID. So this is so this restaurant will need to import from the model that we created. So let's import restaurant from model/restaurant. This is the one that we created. Okay, so now we have restaurant that find by ID. This is a built-in function in Mongoose. So if you find by ID and then request the params at ID, which is the ID specified here, then restaurant, uh, now we can return the restaurant as a response. Okay, and then response at end. Okay. Now we now created this route to get the restaurant by ID. Let's also create a route to get all the restaurants. So maybe restaurants, and then to get all the restaurants, what we can do is just basically say restaurant.find. So restaurant.find will find all the records of the restaurant or all the documents for restaurant collection and then return that as a JSON file. And then lastly, we can maybe create a route to create a restaurant. So remember, when creating a restaurant, we use the post method. Okay. So the post method, what we can do to create a record is, okay. So we have const restaurant equals new restaurant. So new, we'll reuse that same model, the restaurant model, and we'll create a new restaurant object, and then we'll pass the name and address as the body of this post request. Okay. So once we have that, we now have a restaurant object, and then we will save it. And now this restaurant will be saved in the DB. Okay. So now we've set up the routes, and now we want to say, oh, I want to use these routes in our application. So basically say app.use routes. So this app will now use these routes. Okay, let's save it and let's see if we can start this application. npm start. Okay, we start, no error. So we can now let's try to access this. Okay, by going to localhost 3000/restaurants. Okay, the response is there's no restaurants yet. So maybe let's try to create a restaurant. Maybe we can do that by uh, going into Mongo using our terminal. So let's try to have a quick overview of how we can create records in MongoDB. So you can connect your MongoDB using the Mongo shell. Just type Mongo and then use demo. Now you have switched to the DB demo. Why demo? Because demo is the name of our DB. Okay. If you change this to, let's say, Kerwin, you need to connect to the Kerwin database. But since the name of the DB is demo, we connected to the demo database. So use demo. Now, let's see. Show tables. There's restaurants. Okay. So why is there restaurants table? Because we already created the restaurant model. So let's see. Let's create a restaurant. The syntax to create a restaurant is db.restaurants .create address. Sorry. The syntax is insert one. Okay. So db.restaurants.insert one and then name and address. So if I do db.restaurants.find, we will see there's a new record or a new document. The ID is a randomly generated ID by MongoDB. You have the name Kerwin and address is address. We have now the database. We have a record already. We have a document already. So let's exit. Let's start our app. And let's see if we can get that record. It's there already. Okay, so you're now able to get the restaurants. Remember what we did about getting the restaurant by ID? Let's try to get this restaurant by ID. So if we remember, we created the endpoint restaurant slash ID to find the restaurant by ID. Let's see if we can get it. So I passed the restaurant slash the ID, and now I was able to retrieve this. So now I'm connected to the DB. How do I create a record using the API endpoint that we created? Okay, I cannot create a post request using the browser. So what I would do is I would open a third-party tool, and typically what I use to create post requests is I use Postman. Okay, so download Postman. Okay, so go ahead and click on Postman, and then you choose the one that matches your machine. I have a Mac, so I'll download the Mac version. If you have Windows, download the Windows version. And then once you download Postman, I'll teach you a bit about how to use it. Okay. So let me just open my Postman. So meanwhile, while waiting for Postman to load, uh, let me share it. Let me share my Postman being loaded. Hang on. Okay, let me share my screen. Postman is just loading, so give me a few seconds. And then so let's create a new collection. Um, okay, so I will share my screen about Postman. Okay, so now you should be able to see Postman here. So what I want to do is I want to create a new collection. Maybe I'll just create a new collection in demo. And then let's add a request. Okay, so to send the post request to my endpoint, can basically create a new request. Let's call it create restaurant. And then let's do a post. And then the URL here. So it's localhost 3000/restaurant. So this is the endpoint that we created here. It's slash restaurants and it's a post. So we'll do the same thing. So localhost 3000/restaurants. Okay, now we want to send the body. The body should be raw and it's a JSON. And then we'll create a JSON object here. Name, Jollibee, for example. And then address, for example, Manila. And then let's try to send this. So I just click on send restaurant saved message. Okay, now our app is up. Let's try to see if we can get all the restaurants again. Now we have two documents. We have the first one, Kerwin address, and then the second one is Jollibee Manila. So yeah, it's now you're able to read data. We get all the restaurants. We're able to read. We were able to create data. Okay, so you can also do a lot more stuff here, but this is a quick introduction, and I hope this will help you to create your own backend using ExpressJS, using Mongoose to create your models, and then you can also use Postman to send post requests. And if you have a front end or you have an HTML JavaScript client, you can actually call these endpoints using Ajax, using jQuery, and then you can also create records using that front end. You can using jQuery, you can call Ajax to call these endpoints and create data, read data. So yeah, you can use that for your front end applications. Okay, so thank you everyone for watching. I hope this will be helpful. And later, for our next discussion, I'll send more information about how to use ExpressJS and how to use Mongoose to create more complex situations or scenarios. Okay, thank you everyone and have a good day. Bye-bye.